Next topic from the allocation of resources is price elasticity of demand. So what are the topics included? First, definition of price elasticity of demand, calculation of price elasticity of demand using the formula and interpreting the significance of the results, whether price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 1, 0, undefined. We'll discuss them all. And drawing an interpretation of demand curve diagrams to show the different price elasticity of demands. Next, determinants of PED, the key influences on whether demand is elastic or inelastic and what affects the elasticity of demand. Then the fourth one is PED, price elasticity of demand, and total spending on a product and how would it affect the revenue for the vendor or the seller. The relationship between PED and total spending on a product from customer side, revenue from the vendor side, and both in a diagram as well as in computations we'll discuss. And then finally the significance of price elasticity of demand. So first we need to define price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in the price is called price elasticity of demand. If the price increases, how would it affect the quantity demanded? It will fall, but by what extent? Conversely speaking, if price decreases, it will result in increase in quantity demanded, but to what extent the demand increase? How would demand respond to changes in price? This is called price elasticity of demand. Measuring it, interpreting the result is the agenda for today's lecture. So the next topic, calculation of price elasticity of demand. We use this formula to compute the price elasticity of demand, percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in price. That is, change in quantity demanded is Q2 minus Q1 upon original quantity into 100. I'm sure you must know this formula, how to calculate the percentage change in something. Or percentage change in price, that is P2 minus P1, final price minus initial price upon initial price, final quantity minus initial quantity upon initial quantity into 100. So it will give you the percentage in quantity demanded, percentage change in price. So if you plug these numbers, you will get your price elasticity of demand. You will have a possible 5 different types of results. Price elasticity of demand will either be greater than 1, less than 1, ignoring the sign. Mind it, I'm talking about absolute numbers, ignoring the negative or positive. It will either be greater than 1, the number would be greater than 1, ignoring the sign completely, or it would be equal to 1, it will be 0, or it will be infinity. So these are the 5 different situations. Price elasticity demand can be greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 1, equal to 0, and equal to infinity. First we will compute, then we will give the interpretation. What does greater than 1 mean, less than 1, and what are these? So let us first try to apply the concept in some real situation. Let's say we have the original price of a certain commodity, $15, and at this price the quantity demanded was, let's say, assume number 1,000. When the price is increased from 15 to, let's say, $20, so we know when the price is increased, it will result in lower demand, contraction. If you remember, sliding up and down the same curve, extension and contraction in demand. So the demand will contract to maybe, let's say, $700 or 700 units. Now if we calculate the percentage changes in quantity demanded and percentage change in price and plug it in these numbers, you will get the price elasticity of demand. So as you can see, price has gone up from 15 to 20. So there has been increase in price of $5 based upon original price into 100 gives you increase in price of 33.33%. We can plug this right here. Increase in price is 33.33%, right? Or we can just write it here, 33.33%. Increase in price results in contraction in quantity demanded by 300 units. So that is 300 decrease divided by original quantity demanded, 300 by 1000 times 100, it's 30%. So dividing 30% with 33.333, it will give you negative. So price elasticity of demand for this given question is negative 0.90. Ignoring the negative sign for interpretation, it's 0.9. So price elasticity of demand is less than 1. So we can say that this item is relatively price inelastic. Means if the price goes up, quantity demanded falls, but less proportionately. If the price is decreased, quantity demanded goes up, but less proportionately, means it is less responsive. Having price elasticity of demand less than 1 means that item is less responsive to changes in price. Right? So if we construct a graph, a diagram, depending upon different price elasticity of demands of different goods, so we can interpret from the shape of the graph what would be the price elasticity of demand. For example, what we have done right now was a demand curve that showed little stagnancy, little inelasticity. So this was the case. Price elasticity of demand was less than 1. This could be price elasticity of demand slightly greater than 1. Much flatter means price elasticity of demand is much bigger than 1. And finally, here, the price elasticity of demand becomes infinite. So as a demand curve becomes flatter, price elasticity of demand increases. As a demand curve becomes steeper like this one, the price elasticity of demand falls. We'll discuss this with the help of examples. Like in this case, you can see that price elasticity can be just gauged from the shape of the curve, from the flatness of the curve. It is much flatter curve, indicating that any change in price, up or down, will result in a much greater change in quantity demanded. Right? A minor change in price would result in a much bigger change in quantity demanded. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand, PED, would be greater than 1. So a flatter curve will have a greater elasticity, PED is greater than 1. Any slight movement in price would result in disproportionately higher changes in quantity demanded. So in this case, PED is considered to be greater than 1. Next, and remember, this is called relatively elastic. If PED is greater than 1, it is termed as the product has relatively elastic demand. If the curve is like this, it is called unit elastic or unitary elastic. In this case, any change in price would result in proportionate change in quantity demanded. You can see the size of the block on price side and on demand side is same. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. If the shape of the demand curve is like this, it tells us that the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. Means that if there is a change in price, it will result in a very little change in demand. So if the price goes up, quantity demanded will fall, but slightly. And if price were to fall, the quantity demanded would increase, but slightly. In other words, the demand is less responsive. The demand is less responsive to changes in price. So when you calculate the price elasticity of demand, in this situation, the price elasticity of demand would be less than 1. So the steeper the curve, more inelastic would be the demand. The flatter the curve means more elastic demand it will have. If the demand curve is vertically upward like this, it represents that quantity demanded is fixed. It's like a necessity, maybe a life-saving drug, or those people who are suffering from sugar, maybe they need a certain medicine, so they need it no matter what the price is, $10, $20, $30, $40, they will have to buy it. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand is 0. It is called perfectly inelastic. People will have to buy this product no matter what the price is. And we can also have a unique type of a demand curve like this one, where the price elasticity of demand is infinity. No matter what the quantity demanded is, the price stays the same. Let's say the international price for sugar per kg is same no matter how much quantity a customer is willing to purchase. So this is a very unique situation where price elasticity demand is infinity. All right, so the next area is determinants of price elasticity of demand. What determines the price elasticity of demand? We have seen that price elasticity of demand can have 5 possibilities. Either it is greater than 1, called relatively elastic, relatively inelastic, perfectly elastic, perfectly inelastic, and then we have unit elastic, and PED is equal to 1. So these are the 5 possibilities. So what determines the price elasticity of demand? What are the factors that determine the price elasticity? Let us discuss them one by one. First is availability of substitutes. Let's say if we are talking about a product X, and if there are many substitutes available for product X, we can use, instead of X, we can use A or B or C or D. So if the price of X goes up, people will switch to something else, either A, B or C or D. It means if there are more substitutes, the product will have more price elasticity. If there are less substitutes, in that case, people are bound to purchase X, so the product will be less price inelastic. So availability of substitute is one of the factors. Next is the period of time. If the period of time is greater, it would result in more price elasticity. If the period of time is longer, 10 years, 15 years, the time duration directly affects the price elasticity demand. People will find some other alternative. So period of time goes up, it will increase the price elasticity of demand. In the short run, momentary run, we are bound to purchase that item, so the price elastic demand would be less. So the period of time, the longer the time period, the more elastic the demand will be, and if lesser the period, the price elasticity of demand would be lower. Then finally, the proportion of income spent on a commodity. Let's say, how much money do we spend on purchasing salt or newspaper? Very tiny amount. Even the price of the newspaper is doubled from $1 to $2, we'll purchase even the same quantity, since the amount we spend is very little. Proportion of our income is very little compared to the total spending we do. So any change in price will not have any significant effect upon the quantity demanded. So these are the 3 determinants. There can be many more, but at least they will cover the idea. Next, price elasticity and the total spending on a product or revenue. As you can see, this curve represents price elasticity demand greater than 1. If any slight change is made in price, it will result in quite a massive change in the quantity demanded, representing PED is greater than 1. How would it affect the spending and revenue? We can see and sum up from this table given. If the price of the product goes up, quantity demanded will go down. Hence, our expenditure goes down. So would the revenue of the producer goes down, right? So if the price elastic demand is greater than 1, what will happen if the price is reduced? If the price is reduced, the quantity demanded goes up. Our spending as consumers on the product goes up. So it will also increase the revenue for the firm. Makes perfect sense. What if the curve is unitary elastic, like this one? If the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, it will not affect the revenue and expenditure, because if the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down, but multiplication of the new price with the new quantity, the revenue would be the same. Expenditure from the customer side would be the same. We'll do it with the help of numbers. A reduction in price will result in higher quantity demanded, but the multiplication of new price and new quantity demanded, the total revenue would remain same, total spending would remain same for the customer. So if the PED is greater than 1, it means increase in price, previously we saw, would decrease total revenue, decrease in price will increase total revenue. But if PED is exactly equal to 1, in that case, any increase or decrease will not affect the total expenditure of the customers and total revenue for the supplier. Next, if it is price inelastic, like in this case, price elasticity of demand is less than 1. People are bound to buy. In this case, if we make major changes in price, the quantity demanded would not be greatly affected. It's a necessity. So for in this case, if the price is increased, the quantity demanded would decrease, but slightly. Resultantly, the total expenditure for the consumers would go up, and it will increase the total revenue for the firms. Conversely speaking, if the price is reduced, quantity demanded will reduce, but slightly. So if in this case, if price is reduced, the total expenditure by the producers will fall, and the total revenue received by the suppliers will fall. Then what is the significance of PED for the customers and for the suppliers, for the firms? We have seen from different examples. If the product is price elastic, increase in price will reduce total revenue for the firm, total expenditure for the customers. If the price is reduced, revenue would go up for the firm, expenditure will fall for the customer. So this is how the case would be in case of price elasticity is higher. If it is price inelastic, increase in price will increase the total revenue. We have seen these a little while earlier. And decrease in price will reduce the total revenue and expenditure for the firm. So for a firm, it is important to know their price of elasticity for different products so they can price their products accordingly. So the right thing is that if your product is price elastic, reducing price is beneficial because reducing price will increase your total revenue. If your product is price inelastic, people have to buy, it's a necessity, then increase in price will increase the firm's revenue. But if the product is unit price elastic, or if PED is equal to 1, any increase or decrease in price will not affect the total revenue or the total expenditure for the firm. So the last area in price elasticity of demand is significance of PED for customers, producers, and government. Let's see them one by one. As we have just seen, if the PED is inelastic, it will directly affect the customers. Their spending will go up. If it's elastic, also it will affect. So elasticity affects the expenditure by the customers. It will affect the revenues for the producers. And for the government, it can tell the government something about what the incidence of taxes will be. In case if the PED is greater than 1, it is elastic. So it means the customer can switch away their expenses somewhere else. If the product is price elastic and if the government imposes taxes, the burden of tax will be primarily on the vendor, the seller, the firm, because customer will switch away, he'll go buy something else. But if the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, it's a necessity, fuel, food stuff, we will have to buy. So if the government imposes taxes on such items, since for the customer it is essential to buy them, so their spending will go up. They will have to spend more money, so resultantly the taxes burden will primarily fall on the customer. Now let us try a few questions to grasp the idea well. In a country where the demand for petrol is price inelastic, the incidence of any increase in petrol tax will be mainly on, since the product is price inelastic, the burden of tax will primarily fall on the consumers. The motorist who buy the fuel, the incidence, the load of taxes will be on the consumer, the motorist, and that makes B to be the correct option. Next, the table shows the demand for chocolates at 2 different price levels. What is the price elasticity of demand when the price falls from 0.5 to 0.45? Let's plug in the numbers. We know the formula. The formula to calculate the price elasticity of demand is percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in quantity on price. Let us just plug in the right numbers. So as you can see, the price has fallen from 0.5 to 0.45. So it's a 10% decrease in price. So in the denominator, we will have negative 10%. Whereas quantity demanded has increased from 400 to 480, indicating that increase of 80 based upon original 80 by 400 will give you 20%, right? So it means the increase in quantity demanded is 20%. So if you divide 20% with negative 10%, so you will get 2, negative 2. So it is something greater than 2, yet it makes sense. Ignoring the negative sign, you get the right answer, greater than 1.5, so that makes D to be the correct option. The demand for a good is totally inelastic with regard to price. Demand is totally inelastic. What does it tell us? It tells us that the demand curve is something like this. Quantity demanded and price. So it's something that is extremely essential. Life-saving drug for a heart patient, or maybe a medicine for a blood sugar patient, something that he needs no matter what the price is. So what will happen to the firm's revenue if the price rises by 20%? If the price rises, the revenue will fall for the firm? No, it's an essential item people will buy. Revenue will fall to zero? It doesn't make sense. The revenue will remain unchanged? No. Since the quantity demanded cannot change, people will have to buy it no matter what the price is. Increasing the price will increase the revenue for the firm by same percentage. That makes D to be the correct option, and D it is. Next. There is a sales tax VAT on a good which has a price elasticity of demand greater than 1. PED is greater than 1. What does it tell us? If the price goes up, the quantity demanded will fall, but to a greater extent. That is what it means by having elastic demand curve. Which of the following correctly matches a change in sales tax to the change in total expenditure on the good? Let us see each option one by one. If sales tax decreases, and sales tax is a part of the price goes down. If the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. If the quantity demanded goes up, because PED is greater than 1, the quantity demanded will go up disproportionately higher. Quantity demanded goes up, so the total expenditure on the product will go up. The customer will spend more, so that will make A to be the correct option. All these things are in coherence, so that makes A to be the correct option.